So if you live in the United States, you've no doubt heard we've had a special election in the grand old state of Alabama where the alleged child rapist Roy Moore lost, right? His bid to the United States Senate. Now, without looking it up, can anybody out there name the person who actually won the election? You know, what was the name of the Democratic challenger who won? I had problems thinking that, remembering it too. His name is Doug Jones, and he was a prosecutor, and he's apparently done some pretty good things. He prosecuted some KKK guys back in the 60s for murder and shit like that, So he's, he seems to be a decent person, right? But the election wasn't about him. The election was about Roy Moore and the sexual, rape and sexual abuse allegations that have come out about this guy. And apparently, for those of you who've been living under a rock, or if you live in another country or something, apparently this guy had a thing for the young ones and would go around and try to hit on high school girls and stuff, girls as young as 14 apparently. And there's apparently a couple of allegations of him actually attempting to rape some of them, None of the girls have said that they've had sex with him, but there's at least two that I know of where he, took a girl out into the woods once, and then another time had a girl in a car and tried to fucking get on him, right? And it's and that's the thing, okay, so a few videos back I made a video about sexual rape allegations and stuff like that, and I think it bears repeating. When you hear about this kind of thing and it's one woman making allegations against a famous person, your natural inclination is to think that maybe it's not true. Maybe the woman is just trying to get money or something, or in the case of a politician like this, maybe his political opponents put her up to it, And that's just, that's something that most people just immediately will jump to that. It's well, wait till the evidence is in and shit. Right. But then, as it always seems to happen in these cases, more people come out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 women come out, all given essentially the same story. And at that point, it becomes apparent that shit's for real, right? It's not as easy to dismiss it after that when you have multiple accusers. And that's what happened in Roy Moore's case. Now, here's the thing, okay? Roy Moore looks to be the most despicable human being that I can possibly see, right? I mean, likes to get on little girls. He said some bad things about black people, about Jews. In fact, a couple of days ago, there was a viral video going around about how at one of his rallies, his wife got up and said, "See, we have a Jewish lawyer, so we can't be racist against Jews." And it was face palm. Your hand just kind of shoots up to your face and goes so fast it breaks your nose. It's dude, just making it worse. Anyway, and apparently he's also extremely anti-gay, anti-LGBT, right? And made some comments which could be interpreted to him saying that we were better off under slavery, shit like that. The usual typical Republican bullshit, right? And it kind of shows that, because this election was neck and neck. You would think after all of the vile shit this guy says and the positions that he has and the fact that he's has fucking 8, 9 women accusing him of trying to fucking rape them, you would think that this guy would lose in a landslide. You would think he would get crushed, right? You'd think that fucking Mickey Mouse would be able to beat his ass, right? He basically lost by less than, 100,000 votes. It was ridiculous. It was something like 70,000, not even that many, a very, very small number of votes. Right, I have to look up exactly what it is, but it wasn't he wasn't crushed. He barely lost, right? And from looking at the exit polls that came out, right? Basically, Republicans just kind of fucking didn't believe it, They didn't believe the allegations. It was something like 82% of the Republicans said the allegations were false, or probably or definitely false, right? And apparently only 42% of all of the voters in Alabama even thought these allegations were credible in the first place. So you kind of go into it and it's like, well, fucking, he like got like all the Republicans just ignored it. All of the shit that they said, they just ignored it, and it kind of makes you think. It's like, what fucking planet are these people on? Like, how can you? And I don't know. And I think really it's just that we have a real problem with the culture, with American culture. The tendency to not do research. The lack of education. Right. The fucking tribalism when it comes to our politics. Right. We have a real problem with that. I mean, that and also fucking racism played a big part in this too. If you look at it, 74% of white men voted for Roy Moore. Right. Now, that's actually, like, I would expect that to be closer to 50%, but it was 74. 74% of white men voted for Roy Moore, 65% of white women. So I would expect that to be way lower, especially with a guy who's like, an alleged fucking pedophile. You would expect that would disgust some people, wouldn't it? Apparently it only disgusts 35% of white women in Alabama. Turn that around, black people came out in droves for, to vote against Roy Moore, right? 92% of black men voted for Doug Jones. 97% of black women. And it's like, well, what about that, what about the 8% of black men, the 3% of black women who didn't vote for him? It's like, what the fuck are they doing? You know who they are? They're evangelicals. That's who they are. They're values voters. They're people that voted for the Republican because they only vote for people who are against abortion. And it's like, that's a problem. That's a serious fucking problem in our country. The Republicans in this country are so entrenched in that identity. It's like borderline brainwashed. They're so entrenched in that idea that, it's they vote for, lower taxes and save the babies and shit like that, that they almost put a fucking pedophile into office. They almost put a guy who attempted, allegedly attempted to fucking rape a 14-year-old. I mean, it's not alleged that he got banned from a mall there because he would go and like try to pick up on fucking teeny boppers. That shit's not alleged. That's true. All right. The rape part is alleged. Okay. The fact that he used to fucking try to like get on like teenage girls, that shit's not alleged. That's fucking true. And it's like, unbelievable. Unbelievable, man. And you wonder why this country's so fucked up. Okay. So I guess the lesson to take away from this is that, voting matters, right? And because, let's be real here, folks, if they didn't run a pedophile in Alabama, then we would have another Republican senator, right? He would have, whatever, if it was any other, politician, someone who wasn't like fucking accused of being a child rapist, they probably would have won, And it's like, well, why? Why would they want to? I mean, as if all of the other shit this guy did wasn't bad enough. Why are people willing to overlook this guy's ridiculous positions on things like abortion, on gay marriage, on fucking, banning Muslims? And that was another thing, that he was like anti-Sharia law and all this other shit. When people are willing to overlook all of these really just silly things that this person believes, because he had an R behind his name. That's really the only reason why. Something is seriously fucking wrong in this country, man. They are. And it's wrong with Republicans. Let's not beat around the bush here, okay? The Republicans have lost their moral, they've lost any claim to morality at all. There was a time not that long ago when these people were considered they called them the moral majority. You guys remember that back in the 80s and early 90s? The silent moral majority who were going to stand up for good old-fashioned American values and that kind of thing. And the family values crowd. the fuck happened to those people? The family values crowd is now voting for a fucking pedophile, right? It's wrong. It's wrong. America is sick, right? It's definitely sick. And I guess the good news to come out of this is that maybe, we've finally found the point at which Republicans will will finally wash their hands of it and say, okay, I'm not voting for that guy, right? And that point just happens to be pedophilia. That doesn't make me feel any better about this situation, to be honest. It's like, so basically, as long as the guy's not a pedophile, they'll vote for him. Yeah, okay, he's a racist, he's fine, he's fucking sexist, he's against gay people, he starts wars, he gives away tax cuts to fucking billionaires and shit like that, doesn't give a shit about the environment, doesn't care about net neutrality, doesn't care about all the other shit that actually matters in your life. Fuck all of that. As long as he doesn't have sex with children, I'll vote for him. That's what's wrong with Republicans. And anyway, folks, adios.